The sun shone brightly over the luxurious shopping district, where designer stores lined the streets like glittering jewels. Well-dressed people strolled in and out, carrying bags with famous logos, their laughter light and carefree. Among them walked a woman, unnoticed. She wore simple clothes, a plain white t-shirt, faded jeans, and worn-out sneakers. Her hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and she carried no bag, just an old phone in her hand. No one gave her a second glance. She moved quietly, observing the world around her. The rich customers, dressed in their finest, barely spared her a look. Some even wrinkled their noses as she passed, as if her presence was an inconvenience. She didn't react, just kept walking, her eyes taking in everything. Then, she stopped in front of the most exclusive boutique in the area, La Belle Vie. The store was known for its outrageous prices and even more outrageous clientele. Only the wealthiest shopped there, and the staff made sure everyone knew it. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open. The moment she stepped inside, the air changed. The sales associates, perfectly polished in their crisp uniforms, looked up, their smiles fading when they saw her. One of them, a tall woman with sharp features, immediately walked over, blocking her path. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone icy. The woman in simple clothes smiled. "I'd like to look around, please." The sales associate didn't move. Her eyes flicked over the woman's outfit, her lips curling slightly. "I'm afraid our store caters to a select clientele. Perhaps you'd find something more suitable elsewhere." A few well-dressed customers nearby snickered, whispering behind their hands. The woman didn't flinch. "I'd still like to browse." The sales associate sighed dramatically. "Fine. But please don't touch anything. Our items are very expensive." With that, she walked away, joining her colleagues near the counter. They exchanged smirks, clearly amused by the situation. The woman ignored them, moving slowly through the store. She ran her fingers lightly over a silk dress, admiring the craftsmanship. "Excuse me." The sharp voice of the sales associate cut through the air. "I told you not to touch the merchandise." The woman turned. "I don't care what you were just doing," the sales associate snapped. "If you can't afford anything here, you shouldn't be wasting our time." A wealthy customer nearby laughed. "Maybe she thinks this is a thrift store." The room filled with giggles. The woman's expression remained calm. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a simple black card. "Actually, I'd like to buy this dress. And that handbag. And those shoes." The sales associate froze. Her eyes locked onto the card. It wasn't just any credit card, it was the rarest, most exclusive black card in existence, reserved only for billionaires. Silence fell over the boutique. The woman smiled. "Oh, and one more thing, I own this building. Which means I'm your landlord." The color drained from the sales associate's face. The wealthy customers who had been laughing suddenly looked uneasy. And the woman? She just stood there, waiting. This was only the beginning. The air in La Belle Vie had gone completely still. The sales associate's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The other staff members exchanged nervous glances, their earlier smirks long gone. The wealthy customers who had been laughing just moments ago now looked like they wanted to disappear. The woman in simple clothes held the black card between her fingers, her expression calm but unreadable. She turned to the frozen sales associate. "Well? Are you going to ring up my items, or should I call the store manager?" The mention of the manager snapped the sales associate back to reality. Her face turned pale, and she stammered, "Oh, of course, ma'am. Right away." She scrambled to gather the dress, handbag, and shoes, her hands shaking slightly. As the sales associate hurried to the counter, the woman casually walked around the store, her fingers trailing over more items. The other customers watched in stunned silence, their earlier arrogance replaced with uncertainty. One well-dressed woman, who had laughed the loudest earlier, suddenly found her designer heels very interesting, refusing to meet the woman's gaze. At the counter, the sales associate carefully folded the dress and placed it in a luxurious bag, her movements stiff with nerves. She swallowed hard before speaking. "That will be $28,500, ma'am." The woman didn't even blink. She handed over the black card. "Put it on this." The sales associate swiped the card with trembling fingers. When the payment went through without a hitch, she nearly dropped the machine. She forced a shaky smile. Thank you for your purchase. Is there anything else you'd like?" The woman tilted her head, as if considering. "Actually, yes. I'd like to speak to the store manager." The sales associate's stomach dropped. The manager?" "Yes. Now, please." The sales associate hesitated, but one look at the woman's steady gaze made her quickly pick up the phone. Within minutes, the manager, a polished man in an expensive suit, rushed into the store, his face a mix of confusion and concern. "What's going on here?" he asked, glancing between his nervous staff and the plainly dressed woman. The woman turned to him. "Are you the manager?" "Yes, ma'am. How can I assist you?" His tone was polite, but there was a hint of suspicion in his eyes. She held up her black card. "I just made a purchase here. But before that, your staff made it very clear that they didn't think I belonged in this store." The manager's eyes flicked to the sales associate, who looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. He forced a tight smile. "I'm terribly sorry if there was any misunderstanding. We value all our customers." The woman cut him off. "There was no misunderstanding. She told me not to touch anything because I couldn't afford it. Then she and your other customers laughed at me." The manager's face went rigid. He turned to the sales associate, his voice low and dangerous. "Is this true?" The sales associate opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. I didn't realize." The woman sighed. "It's not just her. It's this entire culture. You judge people by their clothes instead of who they really are." She paused, then added, "Which is ironic, considering I own this building." The manager's eyes widened. "You, what?" She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and then showed him the screen. It was a property deed, her name listed as the owner of the entire shopping plaza, including La Bellevue. The manager's face lost all color. The wealthy customers, who had been pretending not to listen, suddenly found reasons to leave, shuffling out of the store with hushed whispers. The woman crossed her arms. "I bought this place as an investment years ago. I never interfere with how stores run their business, until today." She looked around the boutique, then back at the manager. "But I won't tolerate disrespect. Not to me, and not to anyone else who walks through that door." The manager swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I assure you, this will never happen again. I'll personally make sure." She held up a hand. "I don't want promises. I want action. Train your staff. Change your attitude. Or I'll find new tenants for this space." The message was clear. The manager nodded quickly. "Understood. It will be done." The woman picked up her shopping bags and turned to leave. As she walked toward the door, the sales associate, now on the verge of tears, blurted out, "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't know." The woman stopped and looked back. "That's the problem. You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect." And with that, she walked out, leaving behind a stunned boutique and a lesson they would never forget. But this wasn't the end. Because outside, another challenge was waiting for her. The woman stepped out of La Bellevue into the bright afternoon sun, the weight of her shopping bags barely registering in her mind. Around her, the usual hum of the luxury district continued, chauffeurs opening doors, shoppers chatting excitedly, the occasional clink of coffee cups from nearby cafes. But something felt different now. A few curious glances came her way. Word traveled fast among the elite, and the scene inside the boutique had clearly caught attention. She ignored them, adjusting her grip on the bags as she walked down the sidewalk. Then, she heard it. A loud, exaggerated sigh. "Ugh, can you believe some people?" a shrill voice cut through the air. "Dressing like they just crawled out of a dumpster and thinking they can shop here?" The woman turned her head slightly. A group of 3 well-dressed women stood near a sleek black sports car, their designer sunglasses perched on perfectly styled hair. They were staring right at her, smirking. One of them, a woman in a tight pink dress, flipped her hair over her shoulder. "I mean, seriously. Does she think carrying a La Belle Vie bag makes her look rich? Probably stole it." Her friends giggled, tossing disdainful looks in the woman's direction. The woman in simple clothes felt a flicker of irritation but kept walking. She had already made her point once today. She wasn't looking for another confrontation. But fate had other plans. As she passed the sports car, the woman in pink deliberately stepped into her path, blocking her. "Oops," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "Didn't see you there." The woman stopped, meeting her gaze. "Excuse me." The pink-dressed woman smirked. "Or what? You gonna cry about it?" Her friends laughed again, moving closer, forming a loose circle around her. One of them, a tall woman in a tailored pantsuit, leaned in. "You know, people like you ruin the vibe of this place. Maybe you should go back to whatever discount store you crawled out of." The woman in simple clothes took a slow breath. "I'm just trying to walk." "Move, please." The pink-dressed woman scoffed. "Make me." For a moment, no one moved. Then, the woman did something unexpected. She smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not an angry one. A calm, knowing smile that made the 3 women pause. "You know," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "I was going to let this go. But since you're so determined to prove something." She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. With a few taps, she held it up. "Do you recognize this building?" On the screen was a sleek high-rise, one of the most exclusive office towers in the city. The pink-dressed woman rolled her eyes. "Yeah, so? That's the Lexington Tower. Only the biggest companies have offices there. What's your point?" The woman's smile didn't waver. "My point is, I own it." Silence. The 3 women froze. The one in the pantsuit let out a nervous laugh. "Yeah, right. And I own the moon." The woman tapped her screen again, pulling up a news article from a financial magazine. There, in bold letters, was the headline, "Mystery Billionaire Acquires Lexington Tower in Record Deal." And right below it, a small, but unmistakable photo of the woman standing in front of them. The pink-dressed woman's mouth fell open. "No way." The woman slipped her phone back into her pocket. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting to get to." She stepped around them, but not before adding, "Oh, and by the way, your car? It's parked in my loading zone. You might want to move it before it gets towed." The 3 women spun around. Sure enough, the sports car was illegally parked in a spot marked private property, no parking. As the woman walked away, she didn't look back. But she didn't need to. The sputtering protests behind her, "There's no way she's serious. Is that tow truck coming here?" were satisfaction enough. But her day wasn't over yet. Because across the street, someone else had been watching the entire exchange. And they were heading straight for her. The woman had only taken a few steps when she noticed a sleek town car gliding to a stop beside her. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a sharply dressed man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and an unreadable expression. "Ms. Leon," he said in a polished tone. "I'm Charles Whitmore. I believe you're acquainted with my daughter." Recognition flickered in the woman's eyes. The pink-dressed woman from moments ago now stood frozen near her sports car, watching this exchange with undisguised horror. "I see," the woman said evenly. "And what can I do for you, Mr. Whitmore?" The man stepped out of the car, adjusting his cufflinks. "I couldn't help but notice you've had quite the eventful afternoon. First La Belle Vie, now this misunderstanding with my daughter." His gaze flickered to the tow truck now hooking up the sports car. "Perhaps we could discuss this over coffee?" A crowd had begun to gather. The woman considered the situation. This wasn't just about spoiled socialites anymore. Whitmore was old money, connected. She nodded. 5 minutes. They sat at a nearby cafe where the staff immediately recognized Whitmore, rushing to serve them. He stirred his espresso slowly before speaking. "My daughter tells me you claim to own Lexington Tower." "I don't claim," the woman corrected. "I do." Whitmore's eyebrow twitched. "That building was purchased by Leon Holdings through a shell corporation in Singapore." "Exactly." The revelation hung between them. Whitmore set down his cup with deliberate care. "You're Michael Liang's daughter." The woman, now revealed as Jessica Liang, gave the barest nod. Jessica smiled. It wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. "Two things. First, your daughter volunteers at the women's shelter downtown, every weekend for 6 months. Second, La Belle Vie implements mandatory sensitivity training and starts welcoming customers based on character, not clothing." Whitmore stared at her. "You could have asked for money. For concessions." "I don't need your money," Jessica said simply. "I need your daughter to become someone who doesn't make the world worse." Outside, a commotion erupted. Jessica's assistant had arrived, flanked by security, holding an urgent-looking folder. Whitmore took this as his cue to leave. As he stood, Jessica added one last thing. "Oh, and Mr. Whitmore? The tow fee for your daughter's car is $850. I'll send you the invoice." Whitmore left without another word. Jessica turned to her assistant. "What's so urgent?" The assistant's hands were shaking. "Ma'am, we just got word. Someone's been digging into your family's past. They've discovered the..." Jessica's phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message contained just 3 words. "I know everything." And just like that, Jessica realized, her carefully constructed anonymity wasn't just cracking. It was about to shatter. Jessica's fingers tightened around her phone. The anonymous message glared up at her, its 3 words carrying the weight of 1,000 threats. Her assistant stood frozen, watching as the color drained from Jessica's normally composed face. "Ma'am," the assistant ventured carefully. "Should I call security?" Jessica took a slow breath, steadying herself. "No. Not yet." She turned the phone face down on the table. "Tell me exactly what was discovered." The assistant opened the folder with trembling hands. "Someone accessed sealed records from Singapore. They found the truth about your father's final deal." A cold wave washed over Jessica. That deal, the one that had haunted her for 2 years, was supposed to stay buried. The documents had been sealed, the participants paid off. Yet somehow, someone had dug it up. Across the cafe, Whitmore was still speaking urgently to his daughter, casting occasional glances in Jessica's direction. She barely noticed them now. All her focus was on the documents in front of her, photocopies of bank transfers, contracts with blacked-out names, and worst of all, a photograph of her father shaking hands with a man whose face had been deliberately scratched out. "Who has this?" Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We don't know," the assistant admitted. The files were sent anonymously to the financial press. So far no one's run the story, but it's only a matter of time, Jessica finished. She closed the folder sharply. Cancel my afternoon meetings. I need to go home. As her town car pulled away from the curb, Jessica caught one last glimpse of the Whitmores, the daughter now crying, the father looking more unsettled than Jessica had ever seen him. A small, petty part of her wanted to savor their discomfort, but she couldn't. Not with this new threat looming. The car ride passed in a blur. When they arrived at her penthouse, a sleek, minimalist space high above the city, Jessica went straight to her father's old study. The room had remained untouched since his death, exactly as he'd left it. She went to the bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines until she found what she was looking for, a leather-bound copy of The Art of War. When she pulled it from the shelf, a small key fell into her palm. Jessica crossed to her father's desk, unlocked the bottom drawer, and removed a sealed envelope with her name written in her father's distinctive handwriting. She'd known about this letter for years but had never opened it. Her father's instructions had been clear: only if the past comes back to haunt us. Her hands shook as she broke the seal. Inside were 2 items, a letter, and a faded photograph of her father with 3 other men. This time, their faces were clear. Jessica's breath caught when she recognized one of them, a face still frequently seen in the business pages. Marcus Kane. Her father's oldest friend. His most trusted advisor. And the man who'd betrayed him. Jessica unfolded the letter. Her father's words leapt off the page. My dearest Jessica. If you're reading this, then Kane has made his move. He was the one who orchestrated the Singapore deal, then leaked the details to make me look corrupt. He's dangerous, not just to our company, but to you. Trust no one. Especially not. The letter ended abruptly, as if her father had been interrupted while writing it. Jessica's phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. The press will have everything by 5 p.m. Unless you want the world to know how your father really made his fortune, meet me at the old pier. Alone. She checked the time, 3:47 p.m. Jessica moved quickly. She changed into dark jeans and a nondescript jacket, then retrieved something else from her father's desk, a small pistol, still in its case, exactly where he'd told her it would be years ago. She hesitated only a moment before slipping it into her pocket. Her assistant appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. Ma'am, the board is calling an emergency meeting. They've heard rumors about. Handle it, Jessica said, brushing past her. And don't tell anyone where I've gone. The drive to the pier took 20 tense minutes. It was an abandoned place, far from the glittering towers of downtown, just rotting wood and rusted chains, the smell of salt and decay heavy in the air. Jessica stepped out of the car, her hand brushing against the weight in her pocket. I'm here, she called out. For a long moment, there was only the sound of waves slapping against the pilings. Then, from the shadows of an old warehouse, a figure emerged. Not Marcus Kane, as she'd expected. But someone far worse. The figure stepped into the dim afternoon light, and Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Hello, Jessica. The voice sent ice through her veins. Daniel Carter. Her father's former head of security, the man who disappeared the night her father died. He looked different now. The crisp suits had been replaced by worn clothing, his once clean shave replaced by salt and pepper stubble. But the cold, calculating eyes were the same. You, Jessica whispered, her hand instinctively moving toward her pocket. Daniel smirked, noticing the movement. Still carrying your father's little toy, I see. Some habits die hard. He took another step forward, his hands raised in mock surrender. Relax. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. Jessica let out a sharp laugh. Help? You vanished after my father's death. Now you show up with blackmail threats? Daniel's expression darkened. I disappeared because Cain would have killed me. Just like he killed your father. The words hit Jessica like a physical blow. Her father's death had been ruled a heart attack. There'd been no investigation, no questions. The doctors had said it was stress-related. She'd believed them. You're lying, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Daniel reached into his jacket. Jessica tensed, but he only pulled out a faded manila envelope. Your father was about to expose Cain's money laundering operation. Cain couldn't let that happen. He tossed the envelope at her feet. That's the proof. Bank records. Phone transcripts. Everything. Jessica hesitated before picking it up. Inside were documents that made her stomach turn, transfer records from shell companies, transcripts of her father's last phone calls, and most damning of all, a coroner's report marked confidential that listed traces of a rare toxin in her father's blood. Her hands trembled as she looked up. Why now? Why come forward after all this time? Daniel's jaw tightened. Because Cain's making his move. He's been buying up shares in Leong Holdings through dummy corporations. By next week, he'll have enough to force a hostile takeover. He glanced at his watch. And once he controls your company, the first thing he'll do is eliminate the last loose end, you. A cold realization settled over Jessica. The blackmail threat, the leaked documents, it was all a distraction. Cain wasn't trying to expose her father's secrets. He was trying to rattle her, to keep her from noticing his real play for power. She studied Daniel's face, searching for deception. If you're telling the truth, why not go to the police? Daniel barked a laugh. With Cain's connections? The investigation would be buried before it started. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. There's only one way to stop him. We need to expose him publicly, with evidence so undeniable even his allies can't protect him. Jessica's mind raced. She'd spent 2 years carefully maintaining her father's empire, but she'd never dug too deeply into his death. Had she been willfully blind? Or had Cain's influence run deeper than she'd realized? Her phone buzzed, a notification from her assistant, press inquiries pouring in about Singapore deal. Wall Street Journal reporter says they're running a story at 5 p.m. The clock was ticking. Jessica made a decision. Where do we start? Daniel nodded toward a rusted door at the back of the warehouse. Your father left a backup of Cain's files in a secure location. Only problem is, Cain knows about it too. And he's got men on the way. As if on cue, the distant sound of car engines echoed through the abandoned pier. Jessica and Daniel exchanged a look. No more running, Jessica said, her voice steel. Daniel actually smiled. You really are your father's daughter. They moved quickly, slipping into the warehouse just as headlights cut through the gathering dusk. The interior was a maze of crumbling concrete and rusted machinery. Daniel led her to a hidden stairwell, descending into the basement where the air smelled of damp and diesel. At the far wall, he pried up a loose floorboard, revealing a small safe. Your father's contingency plan, he said, inputting a code. The safe opened with a hiss. Inside was a sleek hard drive, and a second, smaller envelope with Jessica's name on it. Before she could reach for it, the sound of boots on concrete echoed above them. Daniel's head snapped up. They're here. He grabbed the hard drive and shoved it into Jessica's hands. Take this. Get it to the Financial Times reporter, Maggie Cho. She's the only one Cain can't buy off. What about you? Jessica asked, even as she tucked the drive into her pocket. Daniel pulled a gun from his waistband. I'll hold them off. You'll die. His smile was grim. I should have died protecting your father. Don't let his sacrifice be for nothing. The footsteps were getting closer. Jessica hesitated only a second before grabbing the second envelope and darting toward a rusted grate at the back of the room, an old drainage tunnel. As she pried it open, she heard Daniel chamber a round in his gun. "Jessica," he called after her. "Whatever you do, don't trust anyone." Then she was crawling through the narrow tunnel, the sound of gunfire erupting behind her. The tunnel emptied out onto a deserted stretch of dock. Jessica ran until her lungs burned, not stopping until she reached a busy street where she could blend into the crowd. Breathless, she pulled out her phone. 4:58 p.m. The story would break any minute. Then she remembered the second envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. When she read it, the world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Because her father's final message changed everything. Jessica's hands trembled as she unfolded the single sheet of paper in the dim glow of a streetlight. The sounds of the city faded around her as her father's handwriting swam before her eyes. "My dearest Jessica. If you're reading this, it means I failed. Kane's corruption runs deeper than I ever imagined. The Singapore deal was just the beginning. He's been using our shipping routes to move more than just cargo. But here's the truth they can never know. The $400 million bribe wasn't for me. It was to buy silence from officials about Kane's human trafficking operation. I took the fall to protect the evidence. The hard drive contains everything: ship manifests, bank transfers, even names of missing girls. There's one more thing you need to know, asterisk." The message ended mid-sentence, just like the first letter. Jessica's breath came in short gasps. All these years, she'd believed her father's reputation was tarnished by greed. But he'd been protecting victims. Sacrificing himself. A news alert buzzed on her phone. Wall Street Journal exclusive: documents reveal Leong Holdings' secret Singapore deal. The media storm had begun. She had maybe hours before Kane's narrative became the truth. Jessica shoved the letter into her pocket and hailed a cab. Financial Times building. Fast. As the cab sped through downtown, her phone lit up with calls: her lawyer, board members, even a number marked private that she knew belonged to Marcus Kane. She ignored them all. The Financial Times lobby was nearly empty at this hour. Jessica approached the security desk. "I need to see Maggie Cho. Now." The guard eyed her disheveled appearance skeptically. "Do you have an appointment?" Jessica leaned forward. "Tell her Daniel Carter sent me. And that I have what Kane's men are killing for." 5 tense minutes later, Jessica was ushered into a cramped office where a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s was pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. Maggie Cho didn't offer greetings. "Daniel's dead, isn't he?" Jessica's throat tightened. She nodded. Maggie pushed one glass toward her. "I warned him not to go after Kane alone." She eyed the hard drive in Jessica's hand. "That what got him killed?" Jessica handed it over. "My father died for this too." Maggie plugged the drive into a secure computer. As files loaded, her expression grew increasingly grim. "Christ. This isn't just financial crimes. This is..." She trailed off, staring at a spreadsheet with dates, ship numbers, and lists of girls as young as 14. Jessica's stomach turned. "Can you publish it?" Maggie was already typing furiously. "Not without verification." "But if this is real..." She looked up suddenly. "You realize what this means? Kane will come for you. Personally." Jessica's fingers brushed the shape of her father's gun in her pocket. "Let him try." Her phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number: "Check your company servers. Now." Maggie noticed her expression. "What is it?" "I don't know." Jessica pulled up the remote access to Leong Holdings servers. What she saw made her blood run cold. Someone was systematically deleting files. Financial records. Ship manifests. Every trace of evidence. Kane wasn't just trying to take her company, he was erasing his crimes. Maggie was already on her phone. I need 3 verification teams and legal on standby. We're going live in 2 hours. She turned to Jessica. You need to disappear. Right now. Jessica stood. I'm not running. You're not thinking, Maggie snapped. If Kane's wiping servers, he knows you have the drive. Hill. The office lights flickered. Then went out. In the darkness, Maggie whispered a curse. Backup generator should've. A gunshot shattered the window. Jessica hit the floor as more shots rang out. Maggie crawled to her desk, yanking open a drawer. We have to move. She tossed Jessica a spare key. Fire exit leads to garage. Take my car, green Volvo. Go to the address in the GPS. Another bullet whizzed overhead. What about you? Jessica demanded. Maggie chambered a round in her own pistol. I've been waiting 10 years to nail Kane. I'm not missing the party now. Jessica hesitated only a second before sprinting for the exit. Behind her, she heard Maggie on the phone. This is Cho at FT. We're under attack. Send police in. The rest was cut off as Jessica burst into the stairwell. The garage was eerily quiet. Jessica found the Volvo and slid into the driver's seat, her hands shaking as she turned the key. The GPS screen lit up with a single destination, a rural address 40 miles outside the city. As she peeled out of the garage, her phone rang. Unknown caller again. She answered on speaker. Jessica. Marcus Kane's voice was smooth as silk. Let's not make this messy. Jessica gripped the wheel tighter. You killed my father. A soft chuckle. Michael was going to destroy everything I built. Just like you're trying to do now. The tone hardened. Pull over. Or the next body won't be some washed-up reporter. Jessica's blood turned to ice. Maggie. Kane continued, you have 3 seconds to decide. 3. Jessica slammed the gas pedal. 2. She took a sharp turn, tires screeching. 1. A massive SUV rammed into her from the side. The world spun in a whirl of shattered glass and screaming metal. Jessica's head cracked against the window as the Volvo flipped, rolling twice before slamming into a concrete pillar. Dazed, she tasted blood. Through the cracked windshield, she saw 2 men approaching from the SUV. One held a gun. The other carried a gasoline can. Jessica fumbled for her father's pistol, just as the first bullet shattered the remaining glass. White-hot pain shot through Jessica's temple as she blinked away blood from her vision. The world came back in jagged pieces, the smell of gasoline, the crunch of broken glass under boots, and the cold metallic taste of fear in her mouth. Her fingers found her father's pistol just as the first man wrenched her car door open. Still breathing, the gunman sneered. His companion laughed, sloshing gasoline across the wrecked Volvo. Jessica moved faster than they expected. The gunshot was deafening in the concrete garage. The gunman staggered back, clutching his shoulder. His companion dropped the gas can in shock. Jessica kicked the door into the second man, sending him stumbling. She dragged herself from the wreckage, her body screaming in protest. Blood trickled down her face from a gash above her eye. Bitch shot me, the first man roared. Jessica didn't wait for round 2. She ran. Bullets pinged off concrete pillars as she weaved through the garage. Her lungs burned, but she pushed harder. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. The exit ramp appeared ahead. Jessica burst out into the rainy night just as an old delivery truck slowed at the garage entrance. Without hesitation, she jumped onto the rear bumper, clinging to the loading handles as the truck accelerated into traffic. The last thing she saw in the rearview mirror was Kane's men emerging from the garage, guns drawn but unwilling to shoot in public view. The truck carried her 10 blocks before she dropped off at a busy intersection. People gasped at her bloodied appearance, but she melted into the crowd before anyone could intervene. The GPS address. She had to get there. An hour later, soaked to the bone, Jessica stood before an unassuming farmhouse. The kind of place no one would look twice at. The kind of place perfect for hiding secrets. She knocked 3 times, paused, then twice more. The door opened to reveal an elderly Chinese woman, her face lined with wisdom and worry. Without a word, the woman stepped aside. Inside, the humble exterior gave way to a high-tech command center. Computer monitors lined one wall, displaying news feeds, including footage of the Financial Times building surrounded by police. "You're late," the old woman said in perfect English. "I am Auntie Lynn. Your father's oldest friend." Jessica's legs nearly gave out. "He never mentioned you." Auntie Lynn's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Good. That means I did my job." She guided Jessica to a chair and began cleaning her wounds with surprising gentleness. Maggie got the files out before they took her. The story goes live at dawn. Relief washed over Jessica, until she noticed the bank of monitors showing different angles of the farmhouse's perimeter, including 2 black SUVs approaching down the rural road. Auntie Lynn followed her gaze and sighed. "Took them longer than I expected." She opened a cabinet, revealing an arsenal of weapons. "Choose wisely." Jessica reached past the guns to a simple burner phone. "There's another way." She dialed a number from memory, Charles Whitmore. He answered on the first ring. "Jessica?" "My God, the news is saying." "Listen carefully," Jessica interrupted. "Marcus Kane murdered my father. He's trafficking girls through our shipping lanes. And right now, his men are about to kill the only person who can prove it." A beat of silence. "Then, what do you need?" "Your private security. And a helicopter. Now." Whitmore exhaled sharply. "You realize what you're asking? Kane has friends in. And you have friends in higher places," Jessica countered. "Or do you want your daughter growing up in a world where men like Kane operate with impunity?" Another pause. Then, "Coordinates. Now." As Jessica relayed their location, Auntie Lynn raised an eyebrow. "You trust him?" "No," Jessica admitted. "But he hates Kane more." The SUVs screeched to a halt outside. Doors slammed. Auntie Lynn handed Jessica a shotgun. "Then let's give them a show until your cavalry arrives." What followed was a battle straight out of a nightmare. Gunfire shattered the quiet countryside. Kane's men, professionals all, advanced methodically. Jessica and Auntie Lynn fought back with desperate fury. Just as their ammunition ran low, the thunder of helicopter blades filled the air. Whitmore's security team rappelled down, turning the tide in moments. The last of Kane's men fled into the night. As dawn broke, Jessica stood watching the sunrise with Whitmore. Behind them, Auntie Lynn briefed investigators. "It's over," Whitmore said. "The Financial Times story is everywhere. Kane's assets are frozen. Interpol has warrants." Jessica shook her head. "It's never over with men like Kane." Whitmore studied her battered face. "What will you do now?" Jessica thought of her father's sacrifice. Of the girls whose names were in those files. Of Daniel and Maggie, who'd risked everything. "Whatever it takes," she said simply. Epilogue. 1 month later, Jessica Leong stood before the newly renamed Leong Carter Foundation headquarters. The press swarmed as she unveiled plans for the world's most sophisticated anti-human trafficking task force, funded entirely by her fortune. Reporters shouted questions. Will Kane stand trial? What really happened that night at the pier? Do you still carry your father's gun? Jessica smiled enigmatically and walked away. Some questions didn't need answers. Some battles weren't fought in the light. And some legacies Those were just beginning.